Wireless networks seem to be cropping up everywhere, but I always ask myself, is this actually secure for me to be on? Well, find out. Coming up next.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello, everyone, and we're here with some wireless security or wireless network security fun times. Man, that for some reason I wanted to switch that around. I'm like, wireless security networks. Wait a minute, that's
Is
not
that
right.
a thing?
Yeah, wireless network security. And just like with anything security based, we always have to make sure we start with some foundations, right? We need to make sure everybody's on the same playing field. So Daniel, that's my question here. Can you give us some just basics about wireless technology so we can set the scene with some vocabulary and understanding before we worry about security?
Yeah, sure. Let's just, kind of get away with the, or do away with the idea that, hey, I don't know what the heck we're talking about here really quickly. Wireless, I hope you've used a wireless device from time to time. They're extremely convenient. Love the convenience factor. But what am I connecting to? What does it mean when we say wireless? Typically, this means Wi-Fi or the standard of 802.11, right? Now, there's a couple of different implementations of said standard. It could be A, B, G, N, AC. I think there's just a handful of these things that are running around. And depending on what you're working with, you could be in different frequencies. So a lot of times, I think most of the time, you generally are working within the 2.4 gigahertz or the 5 gigahertz frequencies for communications. Right? So when we are discussing wireless devices, these are the things that we really are concerning ourselves with, at least for this episode, right? There are other things that are wireless, like cell signals, right? They are a wireless type of device. There's also RF. That's fine. That is also wireless. It's not connecting with a wire. But when we say wireless, typically what we mean is Wi-Fi and the different implementations of Wi-Fi in those 802.11 specifications.
All right, so we're making sure we understand the technologies we're talking about. No Bluetooth, right?
No. Bluetooth is a wireless, but we're not going to cover Bluetooth.
All right, yeah. I tell you what, Bluetooth is one of those technologies you get, this is simple. Nope.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Also bad.
Yeah, yeah, crazy.
And it's not simple, is it?
It is not simple.
Why is this not pairing?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Let me read this spec. Wow, this is a 700-page
The
document.
number's in.
Yeah.
It's not pairing. I hate it.
But with that said, let's go back to our actual Wi-Fi,
Moving
right?
on, right?
What are some risks we may encounter or should be aware of when we're using wireless networks or maybe even setting them up?
Yeah, that's a good question because if we're going to have a network that utilizes wireless, we have to account for that. We've talked about risk. We've talked about vulnerabilities. Where do they come from? And wireless is an area where you need to be testing specifically for wireless type vulnerabilities. So, or risks that are inherent to them. Rogue access points are a big one where I actually saw this. I was helping out a school that were having some trouble with the slow network connectivity. And they said, I did a network map and I found that we have 70 rogue access points on our network. I said, I'm sorry? 70 rogue access points? Yeah. I said, why is that happening? They said, because we can't stop them. I said, oh, you can't stop them. No, these people kind of got dropped in. They weren't IT people, and then they became the IT people because they knew a thing or two about computers. And so I was trying to help them get up to speed. But rogue access points are a real problem. They cause network latency issues because people are trying to connect to that access point, which might have a switch involved, and it's doing all sorts of craziness when connecting to the network. So it can cause that, but it's also a security risk because now I'm allowing unauthorized devices to access through that rogue access point. So they're basically giving out connectivity to our secured network through that access point that is rogue, right? So if it's not authorized, it's a rogue access point. Or maybe I'm an attacker and I've just infiltrated your organization. I've brought a wireless access point. I set it behind a plant somewhere and plugged it in. It's easily done, right? Especially nowadays, they make them so small. They're very easy to hide. So that would be a rogue access point. And we would need to check for whether or not they might be in our network. A couple other things. Evil twin, similar to rogue access point, except this one is pretending to be an access point that is legitimate. It's not just like, hey, I'm Linksys whatever, or I'm Belkin such and such, or Asus, or whatever it is, right? It is, I was talking about this with Megan. She goes, so if I go to Starbucks and I see Starbucks Wi-Fi, that might not be Starbucks Wi-Fi. On the nose. Exactly right. Justin, how easy would it be for you to go to Best Buy, buy an access point, and put it in a backpack with a battery source?
You want me to go do it right now, or is I got like 10 minutes, right?
Right.
Super easy, and that's one of those things where I know when I first started, I was like, oh, these are set in stone, right?
Yeah.
These are set up from the factory, nothing to worry about. And then you find that you can set them to funny things, but you can also set them to existing ones that you've seen before pretty easily, interestingly enough.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So because of the ease of it, right, and that moves us right along, it's easy access in the system. You got rogue access points, you got evil twins that are pretending to be legitimate access points and getting people to connect to them, maybe running a man-in-the-middle attack afterwards. Could be doing all that. It's very... other risks that we need to worry about when it comes to networks in general even, but specifically with our wireless devices, is the encryption that is using to try to secure the thing. Use encryption. There's a novel idea, right? Don't just be an open wireless device, because then anyone can connect and anybody can look at that network traffic. So if there's no encryption being used, that is bad, right? We don't want to do that. Also using weak encryption. The encryption, okay, so you said, okay, I'm going to use encryption. That WEP looks good to me. I like that. That's a weak encryption. You don't want to be using that. You want to use the most secure encryption algorithm you could possibly be using. So depending on your networks, which nowadays should be across the board, depending on, except for some edge cases out there, should be across the board able to work with WPA2, personal and enterprise. Okay, so if you're not working with that standard, you're going with something lower, you're opening yourself up to possible compromise. And then of course there's WPS, which is the wired, it's the little push button, right? I'm bad with acronyms. You push the button on the thing and it tells you, hey, type in this code and you're connected. Or it's just push button, and the things connect and you get that access. There are ways to defeat that system. It's not the greatest in the world. It is fast. It has a bit of security, but it's not the most robust. So you want to be careful with using that.
Wi-Fi protected setup.
Protected setup. That's it. Thank you.
I'll be honest with you.
Supposed to make it push button easy to set something up.
Acronyms are hard.
Yeah.
Now, these are some of the things that we should be aware about, whether we're joining a network and maybe even if we're setting these up, because I need to know this as maybe an IT admin or security person. Hey, we don't have 70 access points on the campus. What's going on? I need to go find them. I need to go figure that out. But I would like to be a little more proactive about it. Mm-hmm. I would like to know what are some strategies that I could employ to make this more secure or to protect myself if I'm joining a public Wi-Fi.
Right. You've recognized the risk of using wireless. Good for you. Now, what's the first step is identifying the smell. The second step is washing it off, right? So how do we wash it off? How do we protect using wireless? Okay, there's a couple of ways in which we can do this. We'll run through this really quickly. And to help us, there's a cool website that Linksys makes available to you, which is, let me zoom into it so you can see it really easily. There you go. ui.linksys.com, right there. Okay? And with that, you have all UI simulators. Isn't that cool? So you can click their device and go to the user interface for that device, and it simulates interactivity with it. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to scroll down and look for something that was built in the last century and not one of their older devices. Here's like a MIMO device. That's cool. We'll go with this. Hit version 1. You'll notice if you've ever logged into a wireless access before, this looks very similar to that because this is simulating the UI experience for that specific access point. So I will log in, and hopefully you've seen something like this before. Can I make it bigger? Oh man, there we go. And I have a bunch of different areas in which I can go to. One of them is probably security, and I'll be able to do some security functionality in here. Now in here, let's see what they give us. We We have an internet filter, firewall, VPN pass-through. So what's funny is a lot of times these things get labeled security, and they do security stuff, but not the typical wireless security thing. So let's find this in the wireless. Here we have Wi-Fi protected setup. Do we wish to use that? So we could. We see that it's on the 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. Wireless security, that's what we're looking for right there. So here's the security mode. Right now it's disabled, so this is an open Wi-Fi. And I can do something like enable encryption. Here's WPA2 personal. And I can set the passphrase, also known as the pre-shared key. Let me go ahead and tell you what. This encryption, very strong. It has been broken, and there is a new encryption standard coming, or is available. But for right now, this is still the standard. I can still break it. Not because I have a quantum computer or whatever that can break these things, but because if you set a bad password on here that's easily dictionaried, I'm going to get in. Right? So we don't want to be, all our password policies, anytime you're using a password, you want to stick with those good password policies. So let's see here. What else can we do? So we can enable that. We can set a good passphrase. I like this one, wireless MAC filtering. That's always a fun one. It's disabled right now, but I can enable it. Yeah, whatever. That's good. Go for it. And now I can prevent PCs from connecting unless they're in the list, or I can permit. I'm every day adding to the English language with my own contributions, right? I can permit PCs listed to access the system. So I got a whitelist or a blacklist based on MAC address. I've actually had to do this because my parents, I did it for them. People where they live don't have internet connectivity a lot of times. They live in a very poor rural area. So they're one of the few people that have wireless or even internet connectivity. You would see a bunch of people standing in the street with their phones. I'm like, it's a lot of people on their phones out there. What's going on? They're like, oh, they're probably using our wireless. I'm like, no. No. So I found all the MAC addresses for their devices and set the list. So it's one way in which we can do this. Another one is like, did they have broadcasting in here? Let's go to maybe basic wireless setup. Network name is there, but it doesn't give me security. Well, I'll just explain it to you. One of the things you can do is you can not broadcast the name of your wireless. So if Justin set up a wireless device, he could name it. You see this one's called Linksys 00011. Great. That'll show up in my drop-down when I look at wireless devices. Do I want that to happen? Maybe I want to hide that network. A lot of security professionals will tell you that's security through obscurity, and it's not really effective because anybody that knows what they're doing when it comes to this stuff, it'll just make your life administratively difficult if you employ it. But it is a practice that you could employ, that you might want to use. It's up to you if you think that that's going to be worth it administratively, managerially, to have to deal with hidden networks. You have to know the name of it and everything. It can be a little bit of a daunting task, but it probably won't be effective if you use it.
It may be effective in a scenario like you just gave it. Like if you do MAC filtering and then you turn off the whole broadcasting of the name, people are like, oh, I guess they turned it off. There are times where I wish people would turn it off so my phone would quit asking me.
Amen, bro.
Right? They're like, do you want to join this? I'm like, I do not. No. Please don't. Because people can use that against you.
Right. Set up an evil twin, right? Hey, Starbucks Wi-Fi. Awesome. Yeah, I want to connect to that. Didn't even have encryption. I didn't even have to put a password in this time. Awesome. Not awesome, because you're probably getting, fished or whatever. The man in the middle going on. It's bad. So yes, good point. That would be awesome for us as well to not have to deal with a bunch of SSIDs, which is what that is, service set identifier. That is what that name is. So there you go. Some make sure I didn't forget anything. I think I'm good to go. Run a heat map. That way you can check. It's a good security best practice, which is basically looking for the wireless devices, where they are, and the signal strength that they're pushing out. And make sure you go, there's my heat map from 6 months ago. Now I got a heat map here. And what's this device? Or running a network scan, looking for those rogue devices can be extremely helpful with finding inroads into your network.
Now, one quick question about the MAC filtering. There are ways to spoof that and get around that, right?
Yeah. It's not
foolproof.
Not a foolproof plan at all. Just like you said, we can spoof our MAC addresses and it'll go, cool, you're in. Great, right? So none of these, again, this is all layered security. It's defense in depth. this will be our defense in depth strategy when it comes to wireless. So hopefully you understand that by now. We've been harping on it quite a bit. So there is no one magic bullet. These are a bunch of things that we set into place to try to make our environments more secure.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. I got to go change some things in my home network. And you may want to check yours out as well. But for this episode, we're going to go ahead and call it done. So signing out for IT Pro TV, I've been your host, Justin Dennison.
I'm Daniel Lowry.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.